city council meeting tonight, Monday, May 4th at 7 p.m. City Clerk Ayala, can you do the roll call, please?
President Dominguez.
Present.
President Pro Temp Nartatez.
Present.
Councilor Booker Jr.
Present.
Councilor Dice.
Here.
Councilor Sarai. Councilor Goodwin. Councilor Burke.
Councilor Burke is here.
Okay, I have 4 present, 3 absent.
Okay,
That doesn't sound right. So we have
yeah,
7.
that's right. We need to get a couple, at least 5. Oh, there we go. Go ahead. I see Councilor Goodwin.
Okay, Councilor Goodwin.
We're doing the roll call.
Present.
Okay, I heard Councilor Goodwin is present. So you have 5 present. Is
All right.
Councilor Sarai present?
Jonathan, did you get Councilor Booker?
I did. Okay, you have 6 present.
Okay, thank you, City Clerk Ayala. Let me just read quickly the logistics for tonight that I always do, and then we just begin with the call, with the pledge, pray and pledge by Councilor Dice. Okay, let me just read this first. Due to the ongoing national and state public health emergency caused by the global coronavirus pandemic, City of New London public meetings will be held virtually. Meeting agendas can be found at www.newlondonct.org. An audio recording of this meeting will be posted on the city website within 7 days of the meeting. Public comment may be submitted in writing to jstarts@newlondonct.org. If you prefer, you may sign up to speak at the following link on the City of New London website, which is newlondonct.org/live-stream. This link will bring you to a fillable form where you may submit your name and you will be added to the public comment list and called on via Zoom during the public comment portion of the meeting. I also just want to make sure welcome our Mayor Pastor. I want to welcome also Director of Finances, Mr. McBride, Attorney Landrigan. Also want to welcome Chairwoman Martha Marks, who's here too, and make sure I saw a couple. I saw also Director of Office of Development, Felix Reyes. With that said, I am going to call on now Councilor Dice to open up with prayer and the pledge after, please. And I like, Councilor Dice, I like the way you did it. You had it all silenced and then we were able to do that. I like that. You can do that again. That was good.
Thank you, President Dominguez. This is Councilor Dice. I ask all of us if we can have a moment of silence right now for all the lives that's been lost during this time. Lord, I thank you for every household represented in this virtual reality right now. I pray that you be with each of the families in our community as each counselors think over the things that need to be done today, that we will have our community first, whether it's our children, our parents, the citizens here, that we would do what is best for our community. I ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I do have a flag, so we all can say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I ask President Dominguez if you could do it in Spanish, please.
Yes. Prometo lealtad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América, a la república que representa una nación ante Dios indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos.
Amen.
Thank you. Yes, also, let me also welcome, I know that Kat Goulart is among us too. She's the Republican chair for the Republican Party. So thank you for joining us too, Kat Goulart. With that said, let me just quickly just go over some housekeeping rules real quick. Just remember that when you are, this is for the councilors and everyone that's at this meeting, make sure you state your name when you're either asking a question or speaking, and then if you're responding, state your name again. It's all because we're recording and we want to make sure that we get you on record that that was you that said the statement. So just a little reminder for everyone. I know we've been doing this almost 2 months already, but you know, it's always good to remind each other. So with that said, I am going to go to 3.0 public hearings. There is one public hearing that's going to come up this week, Wednesday at, is it 6 p.m.? It is, okay? So a public hearing meeting this Wednesday, okay? For the second reading of the budget. Right. Minutes of the previous meeting. I need a motion for that one.
Moved. This is Pro Temp Natalis.
Second by Stati.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded by Sadi. All right. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. All right. It passes. Thank you. Motion carries. All right. There are two public comments right now. I'm going to read the first one, and then I'm going to have President Pro Tem read the next one. Okay, the first one is from Pearlie Cook. I would like to thank the council for the support of the Drop-In Learning Center Summer Enrichment Program. The Summer Enrichment Program is important to our families for providing childcare in our community. The staff, board of directors, and families of the Drop-In Learning Center appreciates the support that has been provided over the years. The center, a drop-in community learning and resource center, also known as a Drop-In Learning Center, will be celebrating 50 years from 1970 to 2020. Thank you, Pearlie Cook, New London resident, 26 Darrell Street. Okay, go ahead, President Pro Tem.
Yes, this is a public comment that was submitted by Shanice Austin. It says, my name is Shanice Austin and I live at 1132 Ocean Avenue. Thank you for the opportunity to share my public comments with you tonight. On May 1st, Senator Murphy shared that Governor Lamont is urging community stakeholders throughout Connecticut to establish local long-term recovery committees that will help meet the urgent needs, accelerate recovery, and expedite coordination with the state's emergency management as it relates to the recovery efforts due to COVID-19. Governor Lamont has suggested that the committee should consist of municipal leaders, philanthropic partners, community-based organizations, nonprofits, residents, and business leaders. Can you share if New London has initiated such a team and who is on it? If a team has not yet been put together, can you provide a timeline for doing so? In regards to CAM 7.3, can you please elaborate on the specifics on the necessary design work of district offices and the related physical structure changes for the Benny Dover Jackson Middle School project that increases the budget by $573,654? Where will this additional funding come from? Lastly, I want to commend the Mayor's Office on seeking grant funding with the U.S. Department of Transportation Build 2020 Fund and the Port Infrastructure Development Program grant for the projects relating to the parking garage and the city's ports. While we don't know the outcome of the grants, I think, but if we do receive the funding and work on these projects begin, I hope that the Mayor's Office is also advocating for jobs for our city residents that relate to these projects. If there is training already available, an intensive marketing campaign is needed to get our residents ready for these buildings and construction opportunities. Job creation and opportunities are going to be an important part to our local economy's recovery from the effects of COVID-19 and the high unemployment that is being forecasted. Thank you, Shanice Austin.
Thank you. This is President Dominguez speaking. At this time, we do have a person from our audience that wants to speak. Kat Goulart, you could go right ahead.
Right. Good evening. Kat Goulart, 54 Dow Street. The agenda item that I'd like to speak on tonight is the school bonding project, specifically the additional $5 million that is going to be, or that you're voting on tonight, to allot for the new admin building. My concern is not necessarily the project itself. It is a little bit more with the procedure of it. From what I understand, this project is largely being driven from the city side, not necessarily the school side or the Board of Ed or central office. The building is largely intact and usable, and it's okay. I get the idea behind it. If we're building everything new, we may as well get all new everything if it's not going to cost us more. That said, the building's in pretty good shape, but the boiler system, we know that's been an issue. The heating system has been an issue for a while. What the voters voted on back in 2014, I think it was a referendum. That was a big deal. What they voted on was 2 new schools, not 2 new schools and a new administration building. And so I think to put it to a council vote tonight is a little bit flippant. At the bare minimum, it needs to be going to a public hearing. I understand that you all have been put in place to make decisions for us, but that referendum was everybody. That was all of us speaking and saying, hey, we want to do a little micromanaging here. Essentially, that's what a referendum is voters doing a little bit of micromanaging on the money. And given the scope of that and the heft of a project like that, I think that we need to go back to that and let us do that again. And at the bare minimum, I'm not saying we need to go back to a referendum on it again, but to reduce it to a simple vote of 7, I think is diminishing the value of it, and is making too small a deal of what that is. That was a lot of money. That is a lot of money. And these are large projects that we're talking about. And, we don't want to, I would caution you to please don't just vote on it tonight, because you have the proverbial gun to the head and, better hurry up and do it now because we're going to hold up the project, or do it now because it's going to cost us more. Please look at what is good for New London. Look at what the original intent of the voters was. And, if we need to put it to a public hearing to make sure that we're doing things properly and procedurally and at the, we may be doing it procedurally, but to at least make it look like we're doing it in good form and that we're following the will of what it is the voters wanted. I think we all want what's best for our students, and having, proper support staff and having good buildings for them and a good solid place for them to work is part of that. But we want to make sure that we're doing it on the level and on the up and up. So again, please, just let's look at doing what is good for New London and not just rushing through things. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kat, for those comments. At this time, there is no other public comment. Any petitions? Okay, no petitions. In response to public comment, I'm going to be calling on Kevin Booker Jr. Councilor Kevin Booker Jr., do you have any response to public comment?
This is Councilor Booker. I just want to thank everyone for coming out, just voicing their opinion virtually online. I greatly appreciate it, and I'll take some of your comments into consideration. This is Councilor Booker. Thank you very much.
Hey, President Pro Tem Natatis, this is President Dominguez speaking. Do you have any comments?
President Pro Tem Natatis, I do not have any comments at this time.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Sadi, any comments? I respond to public comment.
I do.
Go ahead, sir.
At my count, 32 people are on this meeting, which is much better than we first started. Glad to see everybody here. Wish there was more, but still pretty good. Thanks to Shanice for coming out or writing in. I appreciate your thoughts and your comments. To Kat Goulart, who was on earlier, thank you for coming out. I agree with what you had to say regarding the referendum in 2014. That was a vote with a 2-to-1 margin where people voted for a $98 million for New London High School and $55 million for Benny Dover Jackson Middle School. They did not vote for the Benny Dover Jackson Middle School campus. They did not vote for a Board of Education in that referendum. I believe tonight that if in fact we vote to do that, we are voting against the will of 2 out of 3 voters in the city of New London. And I would hope my city councilors would respect that they have been elected to the city council as a representative and not as an individual. But again, to all those who came out, thank you very much. This is Councilor Sadi, done with public comment.
Can you guys hear me? I can't hear anyone.
I think President Dominguez might have lost his link in. He's probably dialing back in right now.
Okay.
Counselor Dominguez is still on, but he has somehow lost his audio.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, now
We can.
Now you lost your video, but we can hear your audio.
All right.
There you go.
Okay.
Okay. We're
All
back.
right. Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, guys. So at this time, I was asking for Councilor Goodwin if he hasn't responded to public comment.
Yes, thank you. Councilor Goodwin speaking here. Just wanted to say thank you to everyone for joining us today. Thank you for those that partaked in public comment. To Ms. Pearl Cook, I just want to say congrats on the 50 years of the drop. That is one of our critical services here that's been providing decades of service to our youth and to our families. So we love to see when things make it past, a decade and continue on through the trying times. To Ms. Shanice Austin, a lot of what you said was directed at the admin office, and both the mayor, ODP, and others are on, so I'm sure they heard your sentiments. And I also know they do a great job of advocating that we keep dollars local. I'm sure there'll be more to come in future conversations with regards to that. Read the committee that you spoke about with the funds that came from the federal government. I believe that's on our agenda today. So my hope as well is that some of the folks that partaked in that committee could speak towards their efforts prior to us voting on that. And thank again, Kat Goulart, for her words on the Benny Dover School project. I won't take up too much time on that subject, as again, that's on the council agenda today, but just wanted to know that everything was heard and that I appreciate all the continuous feedback.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Goodwin, this is President Dominguez speaking. At this time, Councilor Burke, do you have any response to public comment?
This is Councilor Burke. To Pearl, thank you so much for sharing with us all the good work that's done at the Summer Enrichment Program. To echo what Councilor Goodwin said, I'm sure that the mayor might be inclined to respond about the committee during his report. And in regards to the amendment to the 2014 ordinance, I'm sure we'll get into that later this evening. Thank you.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Councilor Burke. At this time, Councilor Dice, do you have any comments?
This is Councilor Dice speaking. I just like to say thank you. We have a total of 38 participants tonight, and I just very thankful that our community is submitting letters, is sharing what they would like to see in our community, and also participating in the council meeting. So thank you so much. This was Councilor Dice.
This is President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Councilor Dice. And I'm just going to add, I also want to thank each of the people that came out today to speak. Kat Goulart, Pearl, and also we had, what's the other one?
Shanice.
Shanice.
Thank
Shanice
you.
Austin.
Shanice Austin, I'm sorry. My apologies. Thank you so much. So each of you, thank you. And I know, Shanice, for you especially, I know that those answers are going to be coming up during this meeting. Again, only echoing what Councilor Goodwin said, most of that will be directed to administration, and they have been doing for the past, not only this year, but for the past years that I've been here, they've been doing a good job making sure to distribute that money locally. But again, thank you all, and thank you for everyone that's coming out and listening to these meetings and sending your public comment to our Assistant Administrative Jenny Starks. And now what I'm going to do is, before we move on, I'm going to ask Councilor Dice to add that item. Okay, that email that was sent, we're going to add an item to our agenda.
Thank you, President Dominguez. I would like to add this is Councilor Dice speaking. 8.7 CARES funding ordinance. The City Council approved the ordinance 050420-03. I'm going to repeat that again. 05-04-20-03 in the amount of $514,725, made from the funds to support the most vulnerable members of the community during the COVID-19 pandemic. The ordinance is given in its first and second reading in the process of passage by title only. All councilors having copies and the third reading of the subject ordinance to adopt by roll call vote.
Thank you. This is President Dominguez speaking. Councilor Sadi, can you second that, please?
Yes, I would like to second that motion.
Okay, so thank you. This is President Dominguez speaking. We're going to need 5 votes to add this to our agenda tonight. So I'm going to ask the city clerk to just do the roll call on this, please.
Councilor Burke.
Councilor Burke votes aye.
Councilor Dice.
Councilor Dice say yes.
President Pro Temp Nartatez.
President Pro Temp Nartatez, yes.
Councilor Sadi.
Councilor Sadi says yes.
Councilor Goodwin.
Councilor Goodwin, yes.
President Dominguez.
President Dominguez says yes.
Councilor Booker Jr.
Councilor Booker Jr. says yes.
That's 7 yes.
Okay, thank you. The motion carries. That item has been added on. Okay, 8.7. All right, at this time, I am going to go to reports and communications. Director of Law. Does any counselor right now at this time? Councilor Sadi, I see your hand. Go ahead, sir.
Through you, Council President, to Law Director Jeffrey Londrigan.
Yes.
Thank you. So on the general side of your letter, item number 5, Oak Tree Development, reviewed development agreement and possible amendments, emails with ODP and developer team. Could you expound upon that, please?
Yes, this is Attorney Jeffrey Londrigan. The Office of Development and Planning has been approached by the current developer for the Oak Tree development, which is the parcel and development that is slated for across the street from the fire headquarters. Phase 1 was built, which was that white condominium building, which is a little farther down, closer to Howard Street. But the developer has reached out to the city about moving ahead with the next 2 phases in tandem at the same time. And in doing that, there are some adjustments that are going to need to be considered in the development agreement itself. And one component is also this developer may be passing the project or bringing on another team to assist them. And so we're just working through some of the verbiage that needs to go into an amendment to that agreement, which obviously would be brought to this council for ultimate consideration and approval.
And then backing up to number three, UNCG Museum emails with ODP regarding pedestrian bridge approval requirements.
Yeah, Attorney Jeffrey Londrigan, that should have been USCG for United States Coast Guard. And that is obviously just part of that entire development has a pedestrian bridge that is connecting the soon-to-be built museum to the city's Water Street garage. And it looks like the developer would like to begin and phase their project with the pedestrian bridge being underway sooner rather than later. So that obviously entails planning and zoning approval and some other approvals. And so they're just starting the administrative process and putting together and formulating a game plan as far as how they're going to be coming into the city, asking for the approvals that are necessary.
So regarding that, this evening, we are bringing up under 8.3 2020 build program, which is we're asking or authorizing the mayor to apply for $24,800,000 grant. The backup we received today gave us a chart that deals with that amount plus an additional 20+ million there, give or take, regarding the pedestrian bridge. Should that language be included in this evening's CAM? Or has that already been authorized and approved by previous council?
This is Jeffrey Londrigan. I don't think there's anything that needs to be amended to your CAM this evening. That is sort of what I'd say a close cousin to the project. The potential expansion of our waterfront garage is obviously sort of a second or third domino to the first domino being the construction of the pedestrian bridge and the museum. But that expansion of our garage, I don't believe is intertwined with the development of the pedestrian bridge and the Coast Guard Museum and the high-speed ferry terminal for Crosstown, which are on the east side of the railroad tracks. So in summary, I don't think there's anything that you need to amend for that item on your agenda this evening in relation to the pedestrian bridge getting underway.
Thank you very much. And one last question under the litigation category.
Yep.
Number 3, Mitchell Woods, emails and phone calls with Joe Lazzafame, stormwater system in Woods and possible impact of athletic field renovations. Now, when you talk about athletic field renovations, are you talking about the work that Mitchell College is presently doing to their fields, or are you talking about work that we would be doing to our fields?
Jeffrey Londrigan speaking. No, this is in relation to their fields and their renovation of their fields. That entire redo of their fields has the stormwater tying in at 2 different locations. One of them feeds sort of towards the pond on Mitchell Woods. One feeds out to Montauk Avenue and ultimately winds up down on Pequot Avenue. And Mr. Lazzafame, just in reviewing the stormwater plan, had some questions and wanted to see some calculations about the capacity levels of their development.
And I'm pretty sure without a map in front of me, and again, this is City Council John Sadie, I believe without having a map in front of me, there is a large drain pipe that runs along the fence line at the Toby May Fields. Is the plan of Mitchell College to tie into those lines?
You're more familiar, Jeffrey Londrigan speaking, you're more familiar than I am with regard to what the plans might be out there. So I don't know specifically. I don't feel comfortable saying specifically, but I know that Mr. Lazzafame is on top of it completely. And I'm sure he could offer some information as to where it's going. And if you'd like, I can reach out to him tomorrow and have him send you an email just to let you know where things are at on that.
That would be greatly appreciated. Thank you very much for your time. I have no further questions of Attorney Londrigan. This is Councilor John Sadie.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Councilor John Sadie. At this time, I'm looking at all the councilors, and I'm just going to go. If you have a question for the law director, let me see your hand. Okay, I see Burke, Councilor Burke. You may go ahead, and then after you, Councilor Booker. Go ahead.
Thank you, President Dominguez. This is Councilor Burke. Director Londrigan, on the general side, number 7, the on-call sidewalk bid, can you just give us an update where we're at in the process and perhaps a timeline of how soon we're going to have some bids in front of us?
That is not anything that our office is handling or spearheading per se. This was just questions that had come up from Public Works. I believe they already did request for proposals, and some of the questions that they asked of us related to the proposals that were received. Are they all complete? Is there any ability to divide and phase some of the work or components of the work that's being done? So when something's coming to you, if something's coming to you, I don't know personally, but I do know that a request for proposal has been issued and has been responded to within the last 2 weeks since this report was put together.
This is Councilor Burke. I will reach out to Director Sear. Thank you very much for the update, Jeff.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you, President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Councilor Burke. Councilor Booker, you have the floor.
Yes, this is Councilor Booker. This through you, President Dominguez, to Attorney Londrigan. Can you clarify your word choice of close cousin to the project for 8.3 2020 build program for the residents who are listening?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mean anything to it other than to say they're separate and distinct projects. The expansion of our Water Street garage, what can and will happen, whether or not anything happens, as far as Coast Guard Museum. But obviously, if there's going to be a couple 100 yards away, a national museum that hopefully is going to be bringing in hundreds of thousands of people, it would be helpful to have places for them to park. So I think it's sort of, if the Coast Guard Museum is sort of the dog, expanding our Water Street garage is sort of the tail, it makes sense that if you're going to have such a large venue and attraction, you want to make sure that you have enough room for people to park. So I'd say that the construction of the garage, the construction of the museum is sort of the impetus to, all right, now what other improvements do we need to do? And one of them is making sure that we have sufficient parking for the visitors that come to New London.
Thank you very much. This is Councilor Booker for your clarification.
All right, this is President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Councilor Booker. At this time, I'm going to go to, are there any council committee reports? Any councilor that wants to share? Okay, seeing none. At this time, I'm going to have the Mayor's Office Communications. Mayor Michael Passero, you have the floor, sir.
Good evening, President Dominguez. Good evening, members of the City Council, residents, and other city staff. First, I want to welcome our Law Director Emeritus to the meeting tonight. Thank you, Attorney Londrigan, Tom Londrigan, for joining us tonight. It's been a while since we've seen you at a City Council meeting, and we're happy to have you. Attorney Londrigan was the Law Director for many, many years, maybe decades, I'm not sure. In any event, we continue working, moving the business of the city forward, and at the same time dealing with a myriad of issues that have arisen because of the pandemic. One of the ways, as most of you know, that we've changed operations is we have weekly staff meetings at 2 o'clock every day. Contact me if any counselors would like to experience that. I couldn't be prouder. The staff is really pulling and working together, and that's important right now for everything that we're trying to juggle. Our usual duties, along with the needs of this community because of the COVID virus. along with the staff meetings, I continue having weekly meetings with the 22 other chief elected officials in the Southeastern Connecticut COG. This is also proved to be really beneficial, as we try to deal with the regional issues that have arisen, and many of the issues that we deal with in the city of New London our surrounding municipalities are dealing with the same issues, so we're able to, share ideas and thoughts and those sort of things, and the issues just keep multiplying as opposed to diminishing. Hot topics right now obviously involve our local budgets and what's going on to the national, state, and our local economies, and the impact that that's going to have going forward. I also have weekly meetings with Admiral Kelly at the Coast Guard Academy and Catherine Bergeron at Conn College. The three of us will be on the phone again tomorrow morning for our weekly meeting. Great partnership with New London Schools. Every Thursday, we coordinate city staff with school staff. We're working together on our different areas to help the community. Schools are doing an amazing job with their food service program, continuing the meals for our students. And it's, I couldn't be prouder at the effort. We also, numerous meetings with DEMIS, Department of Emergency Management and Homeland Security. This is Region 4. Constant communications from them, weekly meetings with the governor's staff, just a constant exchange of information. We're trying to do that on a local level also. The Thursday, 4 o'clock Thursday town meetings have been successful, and I'll put in a plug for those once again. This Thursday, 4 o'clock, I'll have all of the city staff here in a virtual meeting. The purpose of that meeting is simply to interact with our residents. It's your opportunity to bring directly your concerns, problems you're having, help you need. You'll have the whole city administration listening to you, and whatever help you need, somebody will be there to address your concern. So we want to continue that. I want to thank the council for the first reading of the budget last week. That's a culmination in a lot of work. First, a lot of work by our finance department, finance director, our deputy finance director, Donna Reinhardt, the whole department putting the proposed budget together. I couldn't be more appreciative. And then the work that the council put into it for the month of April. Thank you for that. We are, of course, preparing for Wednesday's public hearing before the Appropriation Board. For those of you, not speaking to the council now, obviously, but anybody listening, the next step in the budget process is we have a public hearing before the Appropriating Board of the City of New London. The Appropriating Board of the City of New London is made up of the Finance Board. There are 5 Finance Board members. You will meet them Wednesday, and the 7 members of the City Council. That makes up the 12 members of the Appropriating Board. 11 members of the Appropriating Board. That board it's just a public hearing. There'll be no interchange with that board. They will hear the public's comments on the proposed budget, and then the next action on the budget is by the Finance Board, the 5 members of the Finance Board. I don't know the date of that off the top of my head, but it's published. I think it's the 12th. It's published on the city's website. And then the council will take up the second reading of the budget on the 18th. Nod your head, President Dominguez. That's correct, I think.
Yes.
Yep. May 18th. So that's the budget process going forward. In a nutshell, we are required under the charter to adopt the budget by the end of this month. We had a really productive meeting with our city restaurants. This was initiative by the administration to get out in front of any needs that the restaurants may have to prepare for opening, anticipating that the governor is going to allow the restaurants to open on May 20th. It's just the first step. We also expect that more of our local economy will be able to open on May 20th. We're just assuming that there will be a lot more preparation needed to accommodate the restaurants because they will not be allowed to open as normal. They have to open and have their food service outside. They won't be able to have it inside. They won't be able to open up their bars. So our goal is to get the most out of helping them set up outdoor venues and trying to get their revenue stream back running, trying to give people an opportunity, a very, very safe opportunity to once again get out and support the businesses. Like I say, the meeting was tremendous. It was, well over 60 participants, got a lot of media attention. So we'll be continuing that outreach, working our way towards May 20th. We are, of course, moving forward with plans to get the emergency CDBG grant money out into the community. We have a committee working on the social service end of that. That committee is made up of Jean Jordan, the president of the NAACP, Jen Moggio, Ledgelight Health District, Paul Galvez, representing the Hispanic Latino community, and Tom Bombry of Community Development, our Community Development Office, and also Jeannie Milstein, our Human Services Director. So beginning tomorrow, the request for proposals is going out to all of our social service agencies to present their proposals. This is going to be on an expedited process. This committee is going to evaluate the applications, and we're going to get that money out so that we can use that money to boost our social service agencies' fulfillment of the needs in our community. We have a similar, as you know, approving this distribution of the CDBG money, over $500,000 in emergency funds. We have a portion of that also set aside to help our small business community. And that process is also ongoing and underway. Those applications are on the city website and Develop New London. So the small business community should get those applications in. The goal is to get that money distributed also as quickly as possible to support our small businesses. And of course, we went into that a little today with in our restaurant meeting. I want to thank. So it's been just I can't go through all of the great help and donations of service and volunteers that are just it's been a great outpouring in the community. But I do want to give a shout out to Chef Tom, who runs the culinary program up at New London High School. He did an amazing job conducting a fundraising campaign and putting together a team of other chefs, including Lee Maston he's an executive chef at the Norris Inn and Spa, Jose Lopez Saus, who is also an executive chef up at Norwich Inn and Spa, and Ron Dutz, who is an executive chef at the Andrea. And these 4 chefs got together at the Elks, and thank you to the Elks, and they prepared over 250 meals that were distributed Saturday. So that beautiful Saturday that people were enjoying, these folks and an army of volunteers were at the Elks in the kitchen all day preparing these meals, and they were distributed by the Alliance for Living to families that needed these meals. So we thank him for that amazing effort. The fundraising drive goes on. This group of volunteers and chefs are planning on doubling the amount of meals next Saturday, and they hope to produce 500 meals. So thank them for that. On Thursday is the National Day of Prayer. It was scheduled to take place 6:30 Thursday evening on the steps of City Hall. Those plans have been changed to a format such as this. I believe it'll be a Zoom meeting. You can find the link on the city's website. It'll be at 6:30 Thursday, but it will be held virtually as we're doing this tonight. So I've prepared the usual proclamation for the National Day of Prayer that day. Congratulations, Riona Dias, to the 50th anniversary of the Drop-In Learning Center. That has been an amazing asset to the city and the children and families in our city for a long time. I think I'm going to wrap it up there. I just want to make a couple of clarifying notes on the discussion about the bond appropriation ordinance that the city is asking the council to tweak tonight. And I got to emphasize that it's simply, I view it as a tweak to satisfy bond council. A couple of pieces of information that I really have to clarify. The referendum that was held in 2014, the voters decided, the voters approved a $49.5 million grant for the middle school, but they approved a $55.5 million bond appropriation. That's a very important point. What the city is asking the council to do today is not to increase that bond appropriation, which was approved, not to change the project in any way, not to change the $49.5 million commitment to the middle school construction project. What we're simply asking you to do is to allow us to use the additional $5.5 million that was appropriated in 2014 for the purpose of solving this outstanding issue with the Board of Ed administrative offices. And every professional that's been involved and looked at that building has the same opinion of it, which is that it's well beyond its useful life. Meaning that it would take, if we were to keep the building, it would take tens of millions of dollars to rehab it. It's extremely expensive to rehab old buildings like that. We're in the same, it's almost an equivalent situation to the Barton Center and could become that serious a draw on our financial resources going forward. So what we're asking you to do is to actually preserve our resources and our funding for our children. Do not complete this building project and leave that financial drain on the school system and the city's taxpayers. It is money well spent to solve and to relieve the city of a financial liability, many millions of more dollars, more than what it would cost to solve this issue today. So I don't believe that it's in any way a conflict with the approval of the voters in 2014. The voters approved a $5.5 million appropriation, and that's all we're asking to spend. So I hope that clarifies those issues. A $55.5 million appropriation, and we're only asking that the extra money that was appropriated for the $49.5 million school construction project be used to complete that campus. We finish the job. When the job is finished, we finish it with a complete campus and no outstanding liability. I'll leave it right there, Mr. President. Unless there are questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pastor. I do have just two comments real quick and then a question. One, just can you give a plug-in for the census?
Oh, it's on my
Census 2020?
Yes, I apologize for that.
That's all right.
It's right staring at me, and if Judy Cox or Dr. Fisher or his wife Karen, if you let me go without saying that, I would be in the hot seat.
We won't.
The census is ongoing, and we are trying to get caught up with the rest of the state. We're not in bad shape, but certainly the city of New London can do better than this. We want to lead the state in this. So the effort is ongoing. We need you to encourage your neighbors to go on the computer, to go online to the census and complete the census. There's a phone number. If you don't have computer access, you can complete the census by phone. And there's also a paper census application that you should have received in the mail recently. You can fill it out by paper. So let's get going, New London. We need to get ourselves counted. That money that we're talking about dividing up right now, the emergency CDBG money, our share of that was determined by the count that was taken 10 years ago. And if we were undercounted 10 years ago, that means that the $500,000, a half a million dollars that we received in CDBG money for this public emergency, is we're short. We're not getting our fair share of the federal funds. So this count that we're doing right now will determine our share of billions and billions and billions of dollars of federal money that will be distributed over the next decade. Over the next 10 years, we will be stuck with the population in New London will be determined by this count. So we cannot afford to get undercounted. We need to encourage our neighbors, our community members to all get counted. That's my plug for the census, President Dominguez. Thank you for the reminder.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And quickly, just one question. Since we have, many of our social services, this was a question that was just sent to me real quick. Our social services that we around the region, right? They don't contribute to the CDBG. It's only done through the census. There's no other way, even though we have a lot of people that that take part of our social services. That doesn't help us, the surrounding towns, right? I know you were trying to do something with the state.
Yeah, if I understand the question, we are the regional, the urban center for the whole region. If we were, I like to say that if we were a county government, we would be the county seat. So we do take care of the social services for the region. I think, I'm not going to get into the whole lecture of whether we're fairly compensated for it, or whether we're carrying a disproportionate burden as taxpayers in the city of New London for that. But I will say that our contribution, the way the federal government distributes their money, we do have, we do get a fair share of, because we're a distressed municipality, that increases our CDBG money, and our surrounding communities do not get that, that amount of money from the federal government. So we do have that advantage.
Okay, I see.
But we should be counted in order to make sure that we're getting our fair share. We have to be fairly counted in order to get our fair share. I hope I answered that question.
Mayor, you probably did answer, but let me just read it. Maybe I said it wrong. Let me just read it. You probably did answer. It says, are any of the regional towns contributing CDBG funds since many of our social agencies serve the region?
The short answer is no.
Okay, yeah, that's what yep. All right, thank you. Thank you very much. All right, open it right now to President Pro Tem Natsatas. Do you have any questions for the mayor?
I do not have any questions for the mayor at this time. President Pro Tem, thank you.
President Dominguez speaking. Councilor Sadi, you have any questions for the mayor?
I do. So the amount of money that we are receiving is $514,725. Is that in total? And how much goes to nonprofits and how much is supposed to go to small businesses?
Okay, I'm still unmuted. I don't have those exact numbers in front of me. I'm thinking that it's somewhere around a 50-50. If you remember when council voted at the last meeting to disperse the money, it was about a 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3. 1/3 went for the to cover the city's costs for the pandemic. 1/3 went to social services, and 1/3 went to small businesses. And that's just a rough divvy up of the 514,000. I believe we went heavy on the restaurants, excuse me, the small businesses and the social services, as opposed to reimbursing the city's needs.
Okay, through you, Council President, to the mayor. Do you regularly attend school building and maintenance committee meetings?
John, I do.
So you made a very misleading statement. You said that it was going to cost tens of millions of dollars to rebuild that building. Do you know what the actual cost is to rehabilitate the building, as opposed to rip it down and build one about a third of the size?
I have my opinion on that, which is
no. The question is, do you know what the dollar amount is to gut that building and repair it?
I know what my opinion is, Councilor Sadi, and I know it's different than your opinion. But I'm
asking if you misled this audience by saying it was tens of millions the figure that we received as school building maintenance committee, which I believe you were at that meeting, was 12 million. It's not tens of millions, it's 12 million.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right.
That's
Thank
Councilor
you.
Daddy, no more questions.
Thank you, Councilor Sadi. Well, $12 million. Okay. All right. With that said, let's have Councilor Goodwin, do you have any questions for the mayor?
At this time, I do not. Councilor Goodwin speaking.
Thank you. President Dominguez speaking. Councilor Burke, do you have any questions for the mayor?
Councilor Burke, no questions for the mayor at this time. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. President Dominguez speaking. Councilor Dice, do you have any questions?
Councilor Dice, I do not have any questions for the mayor at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Booker, do you have any questions for the mayor right now at this time?
Yes, I have a couple questions for the
Go
mayor.
ahead.
In the next few weeks, we will begin to see an influx of individuals come from surrounding communities due to the changing weather and restaurants as well opening up probably back as of May 20th. What are the precautions and safety measures is the city going to take in our public facilities that draw large numbers in the summertime in the light of COVID-19 pandemic?
What we do, Councilor Booker, is we meet every day at 2 o'clock, and usually on the call with us is somebody from Ledgelight Health District, and we deal with the issues as they arise, following the advice of the Department of Public Health and our local health district. So for instance, the hot topic this weekend was Ocean Beach, and the plans we made to try to plan ahead if the situation was to become what we thought would be unsafe from a public health standpoint. As you know, the discussion around beaches is still a very open question. There's been no guidance on that issue. So our parks and the state parks are opened, but only to the extent that through observation, we believe people are practicing social distancing and the parks are not becoming a public health concern. At Ocean Beach this weekend, the beach administration hired patrol officers off duty as they do on busy days in the summertime, just as an extra precaution in case there was any crowd management controls. As it turned out, and I went through there myself both Saturday and Sunday, the situation was more than manageable. So what we're doing as far as, it sort of ties in with our work with the restaurants. We had Ledgelight on that call, and Steve Manshaw was very busy answering questions and concerns to the extent that we have enough guidance. And there still are a lot of unanswered questions. Because people, if we open the restaurants, which the governor has indicated he's willing to do on May 20th under certain conditions, then that will attract more people. People will come out. We'll be in fact inviting people to come out and to mix together. And so, what we're trying to do is to set up a system so that it will be safe within the protocols of this, of the health restrictions of the pandemic. So, for instance, tables, tables have to be 6 feet apart. People at a table should be confined to people that are in a single household. What we're going to do is take all of those, for lack of a better term, social distancing protocols, best practices as far as wearing face masks and stuff like that, and reassure people that we can do this and do it respecting people's health.
Thank you. And my other question is, on Wednesday, April 29th, I had the opportunity to sit in a webinar on preparing municipalities for COVID-19 long-term recovery. And Susan Beisowitz, she spoke, Lisa Bates, George Bradner, and also Rita Stewart as well. These are some of the individuals who are working on creating a recovery plan. And each one of these individuals during the webinar mentioned that we should have a coordinator. Every town or city should have a coordinator. Have we actually worked on planning? Who should be the coordinator? It says should be someone that's retired, someone that's connected in the community. Have we thought about that? What are the steps we're taking at this moment? This is Councilor Booker.
Yes, Councilor Booker. The answer to the question is yes. There is a core committee of senior city staff, including myself, Director Reyes, Director McBride, Director Milstein, and the law director, and I hope I didn't miss anybody, that are working on setting up the city's long-term recovery committee. We are vetting the flow chart right now for that. You know, we hope to wrap that up this week. We started work on it as soon as the governor launched his long-term recovery committee about a week ago. So we are working towards it. There's been a lot of interest in it. So we're in a vetting process at this point and also finalizing our flow chart for how that will work. But we're looking forward to bringing on some extra talent to like give us a higher level of look on that. And I was also on that and a couple other webinars. They've done that webinar to different audiences. Right. And it's a good, it's actually, if all of the counselors don't have the PowerPoint from that, somebody can ask and Rochelle will send it around to everybody.
So just for clarification, Mayor Passero, you said this by the end of this week, you'll probably have some sort of strategic plan for dealing with this pandemic as far as the long-term recovery team.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure we're going to have the long-term recovery team set up by the end of this week, but the goal is to move the ball forward this week. That's correct.
Okay, and by maybe you think we'll have some sort of precautions or safety measures set in place before May 20th, before the restaurants begin to open?
Well, those safety measures are already in place. Okay. The question is how. I mean, it's all the same guidance that we've been getting from DPH and the local legislative health district throughout this pandemic. All the guidelines are in place. It's how they're going to practically be able to be applied now in terms of relaxing the business closures and starting to reopen the economy. Down to we're working on the little details with the restaurants. The first step, as you know, is in terms of the restaurants. The first step, as you know, is they're only going to be allowed to serve outside. So it's just a myriad of details to try to make that work for the restaurants and still allow them to actually be able to do it and not lose money. So work into their business plan. The state is being very cooperative, getting the PPP, the personal PPE equipment, the personal protective equipment that the businesses are going to need to operate. So we've been working very hard to get the businesses to go online to fill out their requisition request for PPE, and then the state has a fairly sophisticated distribution network at various hubs in different regions. Our hub is at the Mohegan Casino. The fire department then goes up and picks up the supply that's designated for New London based on the orders that were put in by our local businesses. This is called the Level 4 PPE distribution network. And then the fire department then goes and distributes those PPE supplies to all the businesses that ordered. So that's one example of a complicated piece of what we're dealing with to help get the businesses going eventually. Well, eventually by the 20th, hopefully.
Thank you very much, Mayor Passero. This is Councilor Booker. I have no further questions.
All right, thank you, Councilor Booker. This is President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Mayor, for the answers and for all the information that you shared with us tonight. Okay, with that said, I am going to move now to consent agenda. President Pro Tem Nartatis.
Consent agenda, that the consent agenda proposals set forth at the regular meeting of May 4th, 2020 are either one, accepted for the record, two, referred to committee names, three, waived from committee to be acted upon as proposed, or four, consented to as proposed.
Okay, here we go. 7.0. I need a second for that.
Second.
Thank you. It's been seconded by Councilor Sadi. This is President Dominguez speaking. All right, here we go. 7.0, unfinished business. 7.1A, B, C, D, E, F. 7.2.
Pull.
Okay, that was Sadi, Councilor Sadi, 7.2. All right, 7.3,
Pull from Counselor Burke.
Councilor Burke. Thank you. 7.3, Councilor Burke. Okay. 7.4, 7.5, 8.0.
Are you gonna do?
Se- 7.5A, please pull.
Okay. 7.5, Sadi.
A, and it's no B.
Pull them both, A and B, okay. So Sadi got 7.5, A and B. Thank you. All right, 8.0, new business, 8.1, 8.2, 8.3.
Oh, Council Booker.
Okay, Councilor Booker. Okay, for 8.3, Councilor Booker, 8.3. Okay, thank you. 8.4, 8.5, 8.6, 9.0, and there's no executive session, and I'll pull 11.4.
Don't forget 8.7.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. 8.7. 8.7.
Pull.
Okay. Is that Sadi, Councilor Sadi? That was you?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. 8.7. Councilor Sadi. All right. With that said, let's have President Pro Tem Nartatis.
All items having the unanimous support of the city council are hereby adopted with a single roll call vote. The motions are seconded. The chair calls the roll, and the chair declares the motions to be unanimously voted and adopted.
Okay, President Dominguez speaking. Go ahead, City Clerk Ayala.
Councilor Booker Jr.,
Yeah.
Councilor Goodwin,
Yes.
President Pro Tem Natartez,
Yes.
Councilor Sadi,
Yes.
Councilor Dice,
Yes.
Councilor Burke,
Yes.
President Dominguez,
Yes.
Did I say Councilor Goodwin? Yes.
Yes.
7 yes, 7 yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay, at this time, let me just quickly just make sure that we have parking director, Mr. Carey's here. Also, Office of Development and Planning, Director Ray is here. And also I saw Tom Bombria also. So just in case you have any questions for those gentlemen there. Okay, I also want to make sure when you pull it, make sure that you move it to Cam. Then I need a second. And make sure, listen, I'm going to give you time. But again, we're going back to 2 questions per counselor. Even if you pull it and you move it to Cam, you can discuss it, but only 2 questions. And then after that, I'm going to go around to give every counselor an opportunity. If you don't do it, I'm going to have to do point of order, and I'm going to have to stop you and move on to the next counselor. All right? Got to make sure we follow that. So with that said, we're going to have a great conversation, but let's make sure that we show equity even among ourselves. So with that said, I'm going to have 7.2. That's Councilor Sadi. Go ahead.
Move to Cam.
Second.
City Council approves ordinance 04-06-20-1, an ordinance amending the city ordinance number 06-26-14-1 New London Magnet School Pathway Project to include demolition and construction of the Board of Education offices on the site of the Benny Dover Jackson Middle School as part of the dual language magnet school project. The ordinance given its first and second reading and the process of passage by title only. All counselors having copies, and the third reading of subject ordinance is adopted by a roll call vote. That was Counselor Shaddy.
Yep, it was already seconded, Sadi. When you moved to
Right,
Cam,
oh.
they seconded. So you have the floor now, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
So, first of all, I think we have serious legal ramifications. If in fact we commingle these projects, I think there may be a call from the Office of School Construction regarding using these monies to hire an architect. I think that there also will most likely be a legal challenge, which may require us to go to referendum. And that, if in fact that happens, I believe that this will delay the Benny Dover Jackson Middle School project. The matter was brought up in the month of April and tabled into this evening's meeting to come up with some answers. At that point in time, we were not sure whether or not this project, if passed this evening, would cost us 20% or 50% of our rate. 20% rate means the city would be responsible for $1.1 million to rebuild. 50% is 50% of our annual rate, or our construction rate, which is 79%. That equates into a 39% percentage. That means that we would be that would be the state share. Anyways, what that equates into, if my math doesn't fail me, would be 5.5 million times somewhere between 3.6 and 3.7 million dollars. I think that we've also had meetings on the North Campus where we've just seen budget overruns, whether it's all due to COVID-19 stuff, setting up of safety stations or whatever it is. But we are now going to have to figure ways to cut $4 million from our $79 million construction budget because we've already used up to $10 million to grow it. If in fact we use up this 5.5 million prior to completing the Benny Dover Jackson Middle School rehabilitation, we may jeopardize that project, and we may then have to start cutting programming at that school for the Board of Education. Also, the building now stands at 24,000 square feet. I believe the top floor of the attic is probably used for storage. So that's 6,000 square feet. The basement has the Board of Education computer system in it, I believe, and other storage. So actually the only two floors that are being utilized are the first and second floor for a total of about 12,000 square feet. The Board of Education did a study and sent that study to the state, requesting 10,600 square feet. In a phone conversation with the state this past week, or last week, I should say, they were very uncomfortable supporting anything less than that. The $5.5 million will most likely not cover the expense. As I mentioned in my discussion with the mayor, rehabilitation cost is astronomical at $12 million. If anybody's ever walked through that building, it's a beautiful building. Millions of dollars have been spent in that building over the last 10 years. Replacement of windows, roofs, etc., painting. Right now, in preparation, they're starting to move people out of that office building and are now taking up educational spaces that could have been used for our high school students. And so I plan to vote against this motion. Now, also, at our last, not our last meeting at the table, but the one before that, where we tabled it to this meeting, there was discussion of escalation. The escalation, okay, was mentioned to be in the millions. So I did in fact question our program manager about that. And he then admitted escalation is usually about 4% a year. I would strongly recommend that we hold off on amending the language, which would be against what our citizens voted 2-1. I do not think that in any way, shape, or form, this is going to benefit the children. I think it's going to hurt them. The other thing in my discussion with our owner's rep, he was most comfortable having this project taken up at the tail end of the Benny Dover Jackson South Campus reconstruction project, making sure that they stay on budget. And I'm not sure whether this is a question that needs to be done right now, but through you, Council President, to Law Director Londrigan, and that would be regarding conflict of interest. If somebody were to work for the Board of Education in that building and or in the building next door that we're talking about, the $55 million project, would it be considered a conflict of interest for that individual to vote on these next two motions?
Without knowing more of the situation as far as who, the person involved, I mean, usually you're going to benefit personally or financially. It's a financial interest. So if someone's going to make money from it, that's one thing. If it's just that it's a building that you work in, I'm not sure that necessarily rises to a conflict in interest. In that case, the city council couldn't have voted on the fact that they want to rehab, council chambers in City Hall.
Thank you. So then my next question through you, Council President, Mr. Warrington, are you on the line? Chuck Warrington, are you on the line?
This is Director McBride. He was not able to attend tonight. He had a prior commitment, him and Kate Turner.
So if possible, maybe you can answer the question. The $573,000, do we know whether that will be coming out of the 5.5 million or whether that's coming out of the school budget, the rehabilitation budget for the Benny Dover Jackson Middle School?
This is Director McBride. He had indicated that 573 was able to come out of the original project, and there is sufficient funds in that budget to cover those costs.
And that budget, though, is for the rehabilitation of the Benny Dover Jackson Middle School. Is that correct?
Yes.
So my concern would be when we get to the end of this project, whether or not that would be considered a $573,000 ineligible cost, which would then burden the city of New London with an additional $573,000.
Thank you, Councilor Sadi.
Thank you.
That's your 3 questions, okay? Gave you 3 questions. So we're going
Point
to
of
proceed,
order.
right? Well, yes.
Council President, quick question for the rest of the councilors that are going to speak on this. Are we speaking to 7.2, which is a change in the original language, or are we speaking to 7.3, which has to do with financial? If I'm correct, 7.2 just has to do with the language.
Yes, 7.2 is to the language. That's what we're speaking to this. This is the cam that was pulled right now.
Got
Vice
it.
President
Just want to make
Dominguez.
sure for the counselors so that we could ask questions as it pertains to the actual CAM. So 7.2 is just about the language itself.
Yes, yes. I believe
Got
that Councilor
you.
Sadi, this is President Dominguez, Councilor Sadi spoke on both, I think, on this one with the question. So we'll be back. If we have another round, we'll be back for that. Now I'm going to have Councilor Burke to speak on the change of the language.
Thank you. This is Councilor Burke. Thank you very much, Mr. President. I've made it clear since this was originally brought forward that I support this initiative wholeheartedly, that I would disagree with Councilor Sadi that I think is the best thing to do for our children, that I think would be detrimental, especially 6 years in the making to enter in this construction project with what could be seen as a liability for building maintenance costs. That would then eat up resources, which could be spent taking care of our new school facilities once they are built. Although I appreciate greatly the note to keep this on the subject of 7.2 and not go into 7.3, I will, after speaking with the administration, I will be during 7.3 making a motion to indefinitely table. As the mayor has indicated in conversations to me that this CAM in front of us is really the only thing that we need to go forward. So just to let everyone know that we're not spending any money this evening. We are only, this is not the contingency. The 49 million and change for the South Campus project has its own contingency, just as plans for construction of a new central office will have their own contingency that needs to be paid for with $5.5 million. So just to remind my colleagues that essentially voting in the affirmative on this CAM tonight really just spearheads and gives the school building and maintenance committee the ability to try to make that happen. As I've stated before several times, that I think it's the best thing for our students. And I know ever since becoming a member of the school building and maintenance committee this past December, it's been a wild ride already. It's very complicated stuff, but we've got a lot of great people on that committee and in the administration working hard. So I don't have any questions. I just wanted to get that out there. But I do intend on strongly supporting 7.2 before us tonight. Thank you very much. This was Councilor Burke.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Councilor Burke. At this time, I'm going to call President Pro Tem Nartates.
Yes, thank you, President Dominguez. I am going to support CAM 7.2, and I want to say a couple of things to the audience tonight to be very clear. And I know that the mayor had touched on this earlier, that this does not increase the bond that was approved. And I think some people are a little confused with that, right? This doesn't mean that we are increasing the bond. Number two, we have many professional opinions that have evaluated that building that say demolishing it is the right way to go. Those are two very important facts. I hear a lot of I think. Those are facts, and I would encourage my colleagues, the fellow counselors, to vote in favor of this tonight. It's the right thing to do. It'll benefit. It does, when it really comes down to it, it benefits the school system, it benefits our children, and it just makes sense. So I plan on supporting this CAM tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. This is President speaking. Thank you, President Pro Tem Nartates. At this time, I'm going to call Councilor Goodwin, if you have any comments on this.
Thank you, President. Really quickly, I agree with most of the sentiments of the my two counselors prior to me, Councilor Burke and President Pro Temp. Through you to the mayor, could you clarify that 7.2 is just for, in essence, for the admin and the school board and maintenance to, in a sense, play ball and get more of a handle and be better equipped to have higher level conversation to understand if this is feasible? And then step two would then be to come back to us to appropriate that funding if and when we decide that that's the appropriate measures to make for steps.
That is correct. That is my understanding from the last meeting that we had with the State Department of School Construction and the chief architect that is overseeing this project, Robert Selmer. He did not want the city to spend any money on this until we worked out a complete plan on whether we could do it within budget with meeting the school administration space needs. So this will give us the ability to negotiate with the Department of School Construction and try to come back to you with a project that hopefully you would approve, but you would have final say on whether we move ahead and essentially expand the scope of this construction project, because we are admittedly expanding the scope, but the goal is to, in the long run, have a better project, a more complete project, and to save money for the school district and the taxpayers moving forward.
Thank you. And last question, as Chief Executive Officer or the mayor of our great city, in your professional opinion, or as the mayor, would you assume or speculate, and this relates to some concerns that came up in public comment, that this project would tap into, cut, or deter any current spending or plans for our actual middle school that would disrupt any learning capabilities or functionality of the space for our middle schoolers?
No, that's not my understanding, because the school grant for the middle school project is $49.5 million. That's the extent of the grant, and the head of the Office of School Construction has said repeatedly he will not, absolutely not expand that grant, that he expects this project to be done within that grant commitment. So, so we have to do it within that grant, or we're paying 100% of any cost overrun. Also, if you look at the project budget, and I wish we had some of the professionals on the call, but the project budget includes contingencies. So the contingencies for this project to cover possible cost overruns are within the current $49.5 million project.
Thank you very much. So really quickly to summarize, what I'm hearing is that I'm voting on this ordinance to amend the language so we can expand the scope without increasing any budgetary necessities that was already appropriated. It does not hinder any current projects that have to do with education or building functionality for our students. And thus it also may help us in the long run with debt consolidation. So therefore, I'm in favor of this. I think we've pushed it long enough to have it vetted. I do just want to say for the record that in no way am I voting to allocate money or spending on this. I think that's a greater conversation that needs to be had. I attended the last meeting, and there were some concerns there, but I do think it's in our best favor to go ahead with this ordinance as it is proposed on the CAM, so that we can at least try to get this project underway and use the most of the money that we have allocated. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This is President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Councilor Goodwin. And at this time, I'm going to call Councilor Booker Jr. Do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, this is Councilor Booker. Through you, President Dominguez, to Mayor Passero, can you explain some of the project budget contingencies just for some of the viewers and the listeners? Just a little bit of clarification.
Yeah, I don't have that detail in front of me, Councilor Booker. However, from sitting in the meetings and going over the project budgets, there are line items in the budget for contingencies. And contingencies are there in case any of the line items overrun the projected costs.
All right, I have no further questions. This is Councilor Booker at this moment.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Booker Jr. This is President Dominguez speaking. At this time, I'm going to open up the floor for Councilor Deitch. Do you have any questions or comments
This is Counselor Dice, and first of all, I'd like to thank my fellow counselors for some really great questions, because that was my understanding, that this is just an opportunity so we can go forward to see if this is something that we can to go in to see if it's going to be within our budget. And this need to be set. We need to vote on this so we can take the next step. So I appreciate the questions that was asked by my fellow councilman, and I'm looking to support this. And thank you. This was Counselor Dice.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councilor Dice. This is President Dominguez. I know that Kate McCoy is online. Is she on? I have a question for her.
Hi, everybody. Yes, I'm available.
Hey, hello. Thank you for being available. Just wanted to ask a question concerning not this line item, but probably with the schools. Are any of the programs, I know that it was mentioned by the mayor, and I don't know, Councilor Goodwin had asked the question, but more directly to you, since you're know a lot of the education and a lot of the programs, you know them. Are there any programs that are going to be cut or anything that's going to stop the functionality of our schools with this being added?
Sure. It is very complicated, and I understand school construction can be hard to understand. The money that we're discussing being allocated for central office is not actually part of the school construction grant for Benny Dover. So they are separate and apart from each other. And the commitment from the project team, the district, the school building and maintenance is to not allow the two to intermingle in any way, and particularly to not allow anything in the central office project to hold back the school construction project.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kate, for that answer. With that said, that's why the reason that I'm going to vote in favor of this, because this is going to allow and give us the ability to be able to negotiate with the Department of School Construction and of course, open the door to do the other things that we have to do. And it's time for us to build these schools, and finish them. The other thing to me is also, it seems to me sort of lopsided to have a new building completely, and then you have the Board of Education building that's not new. I think that in the future, if we don't take care of this right now, in the future, I think let me just say that. I know according to inflations and building materials, everything goes up. Every year we wait. So imagine 10 or 20 years from now, how much would that cost if we don't do it now? And now we have the ability to do it. So that's why I'm going to vote in favor of this CAM right now. And then in the future, I'm going to also vote for, as I did from the beginning, for these schools to be built. All right. With that said, I'm going to ask for us to vote on this. Let me have Councilor Booker Jr., can you read the CAM again for us? 7.2.
Councilor Booker, Ordinance Magnet Schools Pathway Project, CAM. The City Council approves Ordinance 4-06-20-2, and Ordinance amending City Ordinance Number 06-26-14-1, New London Magnet Schools Pathway Project, to include demolition and construction of Board of Education offices on the site of the Benny Dover Middle School as part of the Dual Language Magnet School Project. The ordinance is giving its first and second readings in the process of passage by title only, all councilors having copies, and the third reading of the subject ordinance is adopted by roll call vote.
Okay, this is President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Councilor Booker Jr. With that said, City Clerk Ayala, this is a roll call vote.
Councilor Goodwin.
Yes.
Councilor
Motion
Dice.
to vote? Oh.
You're right, Councilor Booker Jr.?
Yep.
Okay.
Councilor Dice.
Yes.
Councilor Burke. President
Yes.
Dominguez.
Did you get Councilor Burke?
Yeah, I saw him raise his hand.
Okay. All right. Well, we need to hear his voice, though.
I was muted. Councilor Burke is a yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
President Dominguez.
That's a yes.
Okay. Counselor Sadi.
Can't hear him.
I think you're muted, Counselor.
Counselor Sadi is no.
Okay. Counselor Booker Jr.
Counselor Booker, I'm gonna vote yes on this one. Okay,
Counselor
because I know, oh, go ahead, never mind.
Counselor Natartez.
Yes.
Okay, we have 6 yes and 1 no.
Okay, the motion, this is President Dominguez speaking, the motion carries. Thank you, councilors. Let's move on to 7.3, that's Counselor Burke.
Move the cam.
Second.
Seconded by President Pro Temp. All right, you have the floor.
This is Counselor Burke. The City Council hereby approves the increase of the contract for architect services by Eastman Perkins for the Benny Dover Middle School project from the original appropriation of $3,344,290 to $3,917,944, an increase of $573,654 for additional design work on the district office's interrelated physical structure on the Benny Dover Jackson Middle School property, and hereby authorizes the mayor to sign and execute said contract. Mr. President, I would like to make a motion that this can be tabled indefinitely.
President Dominguez speaking. Is there a second?
Brianna, Counselor Dice,
Okay.
second that motion.
Thank you. It's been appropriately seconded by Counselor Dice. Okay. All right, so let's move on to
Point of order, Mr. President. I believe we need a vote on the table.
let's vote on it. Let's do the roll call vote on that one, please. City Clerk Ayala.
Okay. So you want to do a roll call vote on the motion to table?
You know what? I'm sorry, City Clerk. The reason I'm doing it is only because, just to be consistent, because sometimes the hands, let's just do a roll call for the remainder. So it's better. It's easier for me. I start, some people appear, disappear, so I'd rather have the vote being roll call, even if it's not. So with that, go ahead, sir.
Okay, Council. Counselor Natartez.
Yes.
President Pro Temp Natartez.
Yes.
President Dominguez.
Yes.
Counselor Burke.
Yes.
Counselor Dice.
Yes, Counselor Dice.
Counselor Sadi.
Yes.
Counselor Goodwin.
Yes.
Counselor Booker Jr.
Yes.
Okay, 7 yes.
Thank you, City Clerk Ayala. This is President Dominguez. Okay, the motion carries. Let's go to 7.5. Councilor Sadi.
Move the cam.
Okay, need a second.
Second, Counselor Goodwin.
All right, it's been seconded by Councilor Goodwin. You have the
City
floor.
Council approves amending the Citizens Participant Plan as adopted by Council 11-474, update on 1/5/2015 in order to provide immediate relief through the Supplemental CARES Act funding to the Community Development Block Grant to those affected by COVID-19. Through you, Council President, to Tom Bombria, if Tom is still on the call.
Yes, I am here.
Tom, the passage of this motion is just changing the notification period from 30 days to 5 days. Is that correct?
That's most of it. And also the allowance of the virtual hearings, the teleconferencing, and deciding in-house whether we need to have 2 public hearings and have greater citizen participation. It's discretionary. And so by placing on the agenda and allowing a public notice and then this public hearing for public comment and participation, and all those things are included as are the amendments, are part of the amendment.
And once we do that, will this only be for this specific CARES program, or will it be for all future CBDG grant approvals?
That's up to council. The HUD had allowed waivers allowing the use of the changes in citizen participation for the current allocation year and funding that we just went through, and including this amendment to last year's funding and the allocation and appropriation of these funds. And it extends to 2021. The need for this was because of the effects of COVID and the urgent need of trying to support people who have been affected by this pandemic. So we don't have to continue. The waiver was an option, and we accepted it for this time period, and we could continue, but we could go back to what we had in the regular ordinance.
And what was the end date of that time period?
Somewhere in 2021. They realized that a lot of cities, municipalities wouldn't be able to administer the funds right away, and some of the municipalities are getting significantly more money and could use it for long-term planning. That was one of the eligible uses, and so that's why the longer term they're to facilitate those.
Tom, thank you very much, President Dominguez. This is Councilor Sadi. I have no further questions at this time.
Okay, President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Councilor Sadi. At this time, I'll call President Pro Tem Nartatis. You have any questions on this scam?
I do not have any questions. This is President Pro Tem Nartatis. Thank you.
Thank you, President Dominguez speaking. Councilor Goodwin, do you have any questions on this CAM?
Through you to Tom Bombria, just wanted to clarify. So the motion on the table is just to amend our rights to waive a certain time period so we can expedite the funding to get to those most in need, correct?
Correct.
Could you give us a high-level overview of the team that was put together to disperse of the funds? I know it came up quite a bit of times as to how the decisions were made to create a collaborative team. Could you give us a quick high-level overview of who that team is or what it kind of does?
Sure. I would say myself, Director Reyes, the mayor, and Jeannie Milstein, along with all the other directors, had been solicited for input on how to use this funds when we first found out we'd be receiving it. And the consensus was we'd use the funds for 3 different pools or pots of money: the humanitarian aid, the business assistance, and trying to use reimburse the city or make the city whole on some of their extra expenses related to this disaster. And once those 3 pools were made, then the one for the business side, the application is, a modification of things that we've been doing in community development block grant for a long time. So staff worked together with Director Reyes to come up with an application for the kind of requirements we felt were necessary to be able to screen and rate the applicants. And for the humanitarian aid, the mayor earlier had listed the team that Jeannie Milstein put together. And so does that answer your question?
Thank you. Last question would be, did the government give any recommendations as to how the money was to be allocated, or was that decided by your team?
The government had, well, it's CDBG HUD money, so it's got to be any kind of activity that's eligible for reimbursement by HUD. And that is pretty extensive. And so, and it all had to be to either prevent or respond to or prepare for things related to the COVID crisis. And so it was made sense to staff and to directors to distribute it as presented to you.
Got it. And my last question is, I believe the mayor answered that earlier. NAACP was a part of that committee, correct? And was there any members of council that were part of this committee, this oversight committee?
The council president was originally designated for that humanitarian aid committee, and most of the discussions have been throughout the business day, and Councilor Dominguez has not been available, so has not participated as much. And hopefully Jeannie Milstein, I imagine, has been sharing information with him, but I cannot be certain of that.
I have no further questions at this time. I do want to note in the future, I'm very well aware of the great job the city does and the wealth of knowledge that exists on the team. So I definitely commend the administration and their team. But I do think it's essential and important that when we're, in times of crisis or needs, and have so much of our population that are desperately in need or suffering, that we make sure we're beyond transparent with the process, and we make sure that the scope or the scope of whoever's involved is communicated ahead of time, so that we know as residents or those that are in need that our best interests are kept at heart. It's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to be either in part of that experience or to be strung along with that level of oversight. But I thank you for answering those questions.
Thank you. This is President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Councilor Goodwin. At this time, Councilor Burke, do you have any questions or comments?
This is Councilor Burke. I have no questions at this time. Thank you very much.
Okay. Councilor Dice, this is President Dominguez speaking. Do you have any discussion on this item?
This is Councilor Dice. I do not have any questions. Thank you.
And then Councilor Booker Jr., do you have any questions or any discussion on this, Cam?
This is Councilor Booker. I have no questions at this moment.
Okay, thank you. We're gonna vote on this. So I'm gonna do the same thing. City Clerk Ayala, let's do the roll call vote.
Okay. Councilor Sade,
Yes.
Councilor Booker Jr.,
Yes.
President Pro Temp Natartez,
Yes.
Councilor Dice,
Yes.
Councilor Burke,
Yes.
Councilor Goodwin,
Yes.
President Dominguez.
Yes.
7 yes.
Okay. Motion passes. Thank you very much. All right. Now we have 8.3. Councilor Burke.
I believe 7.5.
President
7.5.
B.
Oh, 7.5B.
Yes.
7.5B. Okay. That's Councilor Sadi. You still got the floor.
Move to Cam.
Can I get a second?
Councilor Dice, second.
Councilor Sadi, go ahead, Councilor Sadi.
City Council approves Resolution 050420-02, authorizing the filing of an application for the federal assistance under the Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security Act, CARES Act, for $514,725 as a substantial amendment to the 45th program year Community Development Block Grant Program. Through you, Council President, to Tom Bombria. Could you tell me how this $514,000 is split? Is it equally split 3 ways, or?
No, it's not. It's close to 3 ways. The amount allocated for the extra cost to the municipality and as a match to the FEMA reimbursement is $175,000, and the amount allocated towards humanitarian aid is 169,862, and to the small business and nonprofits is another 169,862.
And could you explain to me what the 175,000 is expected to pay for?
So we can use that funding to directly pay for any expenses directly related to this crisis. Say if the fire department, police department, public works, or administration needed something, any kind of a PPE or safety equipment that they weren't able to secure from other resources, we could use that money to pay directly. And FEMA is reimbursing the city 75% of the costs associated with the COVID crisis, and the CDBG, and that 75% from FEMA is part of the hazardous mitigation money, and that requires a match of 25%. And there are very few federal funds that are eligible to match other federal funds, and CDBG is one of those. So we'll be able to use the CDBG funding in that line to make up the gap, that to make us whole if we have significant losses.
What day does your task force meet?
I'm sorry, what?
What day does the task force, this group of individuals, meet?
Daily.
And are the meetings open to the public?
No, this has been staff working together. Once the decision for those three different roughly thirds pots of ways to distribute the money were decided, and they're on this agenda for approval. We have been working behind the scenes on how to administer or implement those different pots. And so, as you've heard already, the Jeannie Milstein, the Director of Human Services, has a group that has been working on how to implement those funds. They've got a request for proposals that's been tweaked, and by the end of today, we were very close to having something we're pretty comfortable with that would be available to the nonprofits in the community to provide a proposal on how best to distribute, those funds. And it's open to several. The funding could be anywhere from $2,500 to $30,000. And so several of the nonprofits in the community could utilize that money. And we're going to look at, it's more subjective to find out what people are proposing to do, in our opinion, what would be best for the community. And the committee will be reviewing that as the proposals come in. And for the business applications, that was more objective. We tried to get some concrete evidence of need and loss, demonstrated loss by payroll records and tax forms to show what people were making a year ago compared to the last couple of months when they were out of business or losing 50% of their business. So we have some hard, information to compare and to rate those applications. And so staff is going to utilize the applications and then scrutinize them as a group to award funding.
Last question would be through you, Council President, to Director Reyes. My understanding is are you on, Director Reyes?
Yes.
I am.
Thank you.
Yes.
So my understanding is that you are responsible for the small business portion of this amendment.
That is correct. The office of the CBDG office that manages all of our HUD money, which this is managing this application. The same staff.
Are there any small business owners involved with your committee?
There is not. There was the way we decided to do it is to make sure there's no conflict of interest or lobbying or influence on staff on where funding goes. We wanted to make sure that we created an application that was fair and equitable, that had a rating system, that as information comes in, we understood what the hardship was. A point system was evaluated, and based on how many applications we get in and what the total amount of the grants that we have, we're going to prioritize the hardest hit businesses.
Thank you very much for all the work you do.
Okay, thank you, thank you, Councilor Sadi. This is President Dominguez. At this time, I'm gonna ask Councilor Kevin Booker Jr., go ahead.
Yes, this is Councilor Booker.
Yeah.
Through you, President Dominguez, to Director Reyes. Director Reyes, how will you determine which businesses have been hit them hardest within the small businesses at this moment?
So there's a point system that we set up that essentially shows part of the application that shows us the P&L, profit and loss, their profit and loss margins. It shows how many staff they've had to lay off or furlough, and also we have to follow some HUD guidelines as well. Is where are these business owners? Where do they live? Are they in low to moderate income housing? So there's some HUD guidelines that helps us kind of determine and prioritize these applications when they come in.
All right. Thank you very much, Director Reyes. And thank you very much for your great work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Booker Jr. This is President Dominguez speaking. Do we have any questions from our Councilor? Yes, Councilor Dice, you were next. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. This is Councilor Dice. I just this is through you, President, to Director Reyes. Are the nonprofits allowed to do a request for proposal? Are they allowed to submit proposal for to your department?
Yeah, so Councilor Dice, I'm glad you brought that up. That's an excellent point. And anytime that someone brings up nonprofits and businesses, I always like to take just a quick moment to just educate folks that nonprofits are businesses. We look at nonprofits as a business. They just play with different tax rules. So just that yes, this surge grant is for nonprofits, for-profit and non-for-profit businesses. Now, the humanitarian side of things, where mostly nonprofits' mission is kind of geared towards, is to for social services. We're not accepting applications for them. We're looking for them to work on the money that's designated for the humanitarian side of things. We're looking for our nonprofits and small businesses, those in the arts and culture. There's a lot of nonprofits in the arts and cultures sector. Those will be part of this grant, and we encourage them to apply.
Okay, thank you, Director Reyes. I just want to make sure I understand what you just said, because when I was taking notes, it sounds like the nonprofits that's dealing with the arts and culture can apply, but the nonprofits that deal with social services should not apply?
Correct. Social services should be working with Ginny Mielstein and her team on the humanitarian aid of things. That's the health, life, wellness, food, housing. That's the humanitarian side. Basic needs that our community needs. On the small business side of things, that's different. We just want to make sure that we had to draw a line somewhere so folks understand small business. But yes, you're correct. Social should be on the humanitarian side. Small business, nonprofits, including the arts community, should be on the surge. Should be applying for the surge grant.
Hello, this is Tom Bombrier. Could I add something to that, please?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Tom Bombrier.
So, my boss, Director Reyes, was partially right. So any nonprofit can apply to the business and nonprofit allocation. And what we've made a distinction of is that so the nonprofits that are going to apply for the humanitarian aid are probably a little bit bigger, because the proposals we're looking for, the way it was structured, was to find those that have the capacity to and are interested in distributing funds and not just taking funds for their own programming needs. So they're going to be a little bit bigger nonprofits, and they're going to want to distribute the money to possibly several other nonprofits or directly to the community. And so if one of those, and are going to be a lot fewer of those, any of those that apply and are going to be awarded or potentially awarded those funds would not be eligible for the business and nonprofit. But if they weren't, or didn't have the capacity, or weren't interested in that kind of project or program, and that the humanitarian aid and Jeannie Milstein is and her vision, if they don't meet that vision and the parameters of that program, then they by all means should apply for this small business and nonprofit allocation.
This is Counselor Dice. Thank you, Barbara and Reyes, for taking time to explain that to me. Okay.
Hey, thank you, Counselor Dice. Great questions. Thank you. With that said, not sure if I didn't call Counselor Burke. Did I call on you?
This is Counselor Burke. You do not, but I do not have any questions. Thank you very much.
Okay. So I think I called every counselor. All right. I think everything's been clarified. And with that said, we're going to vote on this CAM. I'm just going to read it. The City Council approves Resolution 050420-02, authorizing the filing of an application for federal assistance under the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, CARES Act, for $514,725, has a substantial amendment to the 45th Program Year Community Development Block Grant Program. Again, let's do this. The roll call vote. City Clerk Ayala?
Yes. Okay. Counselor Booker Jr.
Yes.
President Dominguez.
Yes.
Counselor Goodwin.
Yes.
Counselor, okay, there he is. Counselor Sadai.
Yes.
Counselor Dice.
Yes.
Counselor Burke.
Yes.
And
I don't think
Counselor Nurtatis.
Counselor Natartes, sorry.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. 7 yes.
Okay, the motion carries. Thank you very much, City Clerk Ayala. This is President Dominguez speaking. All right, at this time, we'll move now to 8.3, and that's Counselor Booker.
Counselor Booker, move the CAM.
Second.
Been seconded. Go ahead, Counselor Booker.
The CAM, Counselor Booker. CAM reads, the City Council hereby resolves and authorizes the mayor to apply for funding in the amount of $24,800,000 under the United States Department of Transportation 2020 build program for the purposes of upgrading and expanding the Water Street parking garage by approximately 400 parking spaces, and to sign any other documents necessary and incidental to effectuating said grant. Okay, I have a couple of questions.
Second. Counselor Shaddy seconds that.
It was already seconded, Counselor Sadi.
I apologize.
Yeah, that's okay. Counselor Booker, can you just go for 2 questions first, and then we'll go the round, and then we'll come back for your 3rd question, okay?
Yes, President Dominguez, thank you.
Thank you.
This is Counselor Booker. The project narrative that was emailed to the city councilors include an additional $22,518,438, expenses that will be paid for by an additional local grants match funds. Are these match funds fully secured for the project? This question is directed to, through you, President Dominguez, to Director McBride.
This is Director McBride. I'd like to refer that to Director Red, who's more involved in the details of this.
Okay.
Director
Yeah.
Red, go ahead, sir.
All right. Thank you very much, Director McBride. Council Booker, yours is a value-added question, and in response to it, the match funds are secured as articulated, probably in not much detail, both or all of the both public funding as well as the private funding has been on record for over a couple of years now. This for the initial application, which was filed as early as 2017. And so therefore, that match fund has actually increased by roughly $1.6 million from last year to our current fiscal year. This is Director Red.
Thank you very much, Director Red. Through you, to President Dominguez, to Mayor Passero. What is the status of the Coast Guard Museum at this moment?
They are actually accelerating their current building schedule, and they're hoping, I believe, and you're gonna catch me off guard on this, but there's been recent communications. We have a meeting with Planning and Zoning tomorrow because they want to start discussing moving up the construction of the pedestrian overpass piece of it. If you look in your backup, the picture of the project from the city side. They want to start, and then they want to start the bulkheading also as soon as they get permitting in place. I believe the permitting is going to be the permitting for the bulkheading waterfront part is going before the city's harbor management committee in the near future, which is a prelude to the formal application with DEEP. There's a great deal of momentum currently behind the project. I cannot tell you the exact timetable, but I can ask the executive director of the National Coast Guard Museum Association, Wes Pulver, for the timetable, for the updated timetable, and get it to you.
Okay, thank you very much.
If I might, Councilor Booker.
Yes.
I just want to point out, just in case some of the newer folks aren't aware of the history of this particular grant. This will be our third application. It's very, very competitive, as Director Red can tell you. This is a very, very competitive process. Director Red, with a broad coalition of stakeholders, including Crosstown Ferry, Union Station, Amtrak, the Coast Guard Museum Association, a broad group of stakeholders have been working on this for 3 years now, have steadily moved the grant application up the ladder. You know, we don't want to get our hopes up because it is very, very competitive, but this will be our third attempt at going after this money to make this substantial improvement to our multimodal transportation center. And that's where we're at in the process. I don't want to get my hopes up, but we do have much better prospects than the last two rounds.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mayor Passero. This is Councilor Booker.
Thank you, Councilor Booker. This is President Dominguez speaking. Now that I have all the councilors, I can see you all there. Any further discussion before I go back to Booker? Because he had 3 questions. All right. I don't see any hands raised. That means, all right, Booker, Councilor Booker, we're going to go back to you. You can finish your 3rd question.
This is Councilor Booker. The mayor sort of already touched on my question a little bit.
Okay.
So it was based off of through President Dominguez to the Mayor Passero. You know, I just wanted to know, was this grant and project already passed by City Council for the bridge? But you already kind of touched on that question. Maybe you want to elaborate a little bit more.
Actually, this grant application is for the 400 addition to the parking garage. It's not, the tie-in with the pedestrian grant to the pedestrian bridge, I'll defer to Director Red, but that the pedestrian bridge investment is our match or partially our match for this build grant.
This is Director Red, and the Mayor, you're absolutely correct. The key to this particular grant is how we have structured a public-private partnership. Each one of the significant components are independently funded, and under the guidelines of the Bill grant, we are able to ask for two different categories of funding, up to 100% as a urban clustered area, or up to 80% as a rural community with less than 200,000 residents. Subsequently, this has been tested at the Department of Transportation. The mayor and I have participated in 2 state of Connecticut in the capital sessions over the last 3-4 years to continually keep focus on this particular project. And I think that the real key to this, I shouldn't say I think, I know the real key to this is that there is no additional tax burden to either our taxpayers or residents because of the, as was stated, creative way that we have put together the financing in order to support the expansion. So I am as conservative as the mayor in respects to our application this year, because it is a very competitive environment. But based on our debriefing from our last round of submission, which has been approved consistently historically by the City Council, we did receive some extremely high remarks. And I will close by saying I certainly appreciate the Director of Office and Planning of Development and Planning for his insights, because we were able to add to the particular document the wind power project, which gives us a broader scope relative to innovative technologies, and the microtransit program, which you honored us with earlier, to the content of the application. And so certainly there are some really strong indications based on our conversations with the regional transit authority in Boston that we're looking good. But again, my hat's off to the plethora of resources across not only the state of Connecticut, including the Department of Transportation and members of the governor's office, but our local businesses that have continually put their shoulder to the stone in order to get us in this driver's seat position.
Thank you, Director Red. Does that suffice your question, Councilor Booker Jr.?
Yes, this is Councilor Booker. Just for a little clarification on my question. So due to the pandemic crisis that we are in right now, so does this secure that does this actually fully secure that our funds will be okay, or will we have issues with the back out from private funding?
We have up until 2022 to finalize the agreement. The Department of Transportation wisely took that into consideration. So if there are any issues that are presented relative to the pandemic, we have roughly a year and a half to 2 years in order to sort those out. And I have not heard anything to the contrary. I will also say that I was very happy to hear from the museum that their funding for the program as a whole for the museum had increased by $2.5 million since last year as well.
Thank you very much, Director Red. This is Councilor Booker. I have no further questions.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Booker Jr., and thank you, Director of Parking, Kerry Red, for all that you do for the city. You greatly appreciate it. With that said, Councilor Burke, can you just read that CAM again? 8.3, so we can just vote on it?
Certainly, one moment. This is Councilor Burke. Scrolling up to 8.3. Cam, the City Council hereby resolves and authorizes the mayor to apply for funding in the amount of $24,800,000 under the U.S. Department of Transportation 2020 Build Program for the purposes of upgrading and expanding the Water Street parking garage by approximately 400 parking spaces, and to sign any other documents necessary and incidental to effectuating said contract.
Okay, thank you. Let's have City Clerk Ayala. Let's do the roll call.
Okay, Councilor Booker Jr.,
Yes.
President Pro Temp Natartez,
Yes.
Councilor Sadai,
Yes.
President Dominguez,
Yes.
Councilor Goodwin,
Yes.
Councilor Burke,
Yes.
Councilor Dice,
Yes.
7 yes.
Okay, the motion, this is President Dominguez speaking, the motion carries. We got one more CAM to go. 8.7, that's Councilor Sadi.
Yeah, I'm just trying to pull the cam up. Move the cam.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, it's been properly seconded by President Pro Tem Natartez and Councilor Sadi. Whenever you have it.
Yeah. Apologize. For some reason I had it up already, but now try one more time. Yeah, for some reason my email doesn't seem to want to open. If somebody else wouldn't mind reading the ordinance.
I'll read it.
All right, Councilor Booker Jr., go ahead. Read
Actually,
it, please.
I have it now.
Okay.
Oh, you have it? Okay.
The
All
city
right.
council approves ordinance 0504-2003 in the amount of $514,725 made from funds to support the most vulnerable members of the community during the COVID-19 pandemic. The ordinance is given its first and second reading in the process of passage by total only. All councils having copies in the third reading of subject ordinance adopted by roll call vote.
Go ahead, Councilor Sadi. It's already been seconded.
So, yeah, so I guess the question is to Director McBride. My understanding is this is the funding ordinance, so we've already passed the other two ordinances, and this one here just authorizes the city to spend the money.
That's correct. Yep.
I have no further questions.
Okay. Councilor Burke, President Dominguez speaking. Any questions on this?
No questions. This is Councilor Burke.
All right. President Dominguez speaking. Councilor Goodwin, any questions?
No.
Nope. President Pro Temp, any questions?
No questions.
All right. Now, since I have everyone on screen, does anybody have any questions? Now, just raise your hand. Okay. No questions. So that means we are going to vote on this right now. Okay. So let's have City Clerk Ayala. Go ahead.
Councilor Burke,
Yes.
Councilor Goodwin,
Yes.
Councilor Sadai,
Yes.
Councilor Booker Jr.,
Yes.
President Dominguez,
Yes.
Councilor Dice,
Yes.
President Pro Temp Natartez,
Yes.
7 yes.
Okay. This is President Dominguez speaking. The motion carries 7-0. Thank you. And I pulled 11 point. That's for motion to adjourn. President Dominguez speaking. Can I get a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Councilor Booker Jr. All right. All those in favor? say aye.
Aye.
Do the aye right now. All right. Those
Aye.
opposed say nay. Okay, this council meeting is over at 9:19 p.m. for tonight. Have a good evening, everyone. See you on Wednesday for our public
Wednesday.
hearing. Okay?
Alrighty.
All right, everyone. Good night.